next, I'll be speaking on the most important the situation in our day-to-day cataract, in day-to-day situation, that is the communication in cataract surgery. I think this is very important that Dr. Ravinder has already alluded that good communicators get into less trouble. And the communication teaching has not been a part of our postgraduate curriculum or in a fellowship curriculum. They just happen to learn it by default. If they're basically good communicators, rule the roost. If you're bad communicators without a proper training or a curriculum, many a times many mistakes are done. It's a very mistakes. It's a very costly mistakes. So it has to be probably re-ingrained into our system. It's a soft skill which has been forgotten. I think we need to reiterate this. I think instruction courses like this will probably will go a long way in trying to educate everyone. This is not just for a beginner. Anybody, I've seen even some of the senior ophthalmologists making some elementary mistakes in communication. I think many times when we grow old, we also become cautious and arrogant, and probably, so this is where we need to kind of relearn these things. I think if you have a good communication, it always adds value to your surgical outcome. It is not that the 6'6" or 6'5" vision that makes a patient happy in cataract surgery. This we have learned, okay, over a long period, that the patient who is happy with the surgery is happy for sometimes non-clinical reasons, not because of the vision. Patient who is 6'5" can be absolutely grumpy, okay, can really, make your life miserable. Somebody who has got lesser vision, suboptimal vision, can sometimes be very happy, can be your brand ambassador. So using the right communication, understanding the situation is a definite, plus point for your surgical outcome. I think let me kind of start with the second eye syndrome. I think this is very commonplace that we in ophthalmology, we operate both eyes. The patient comes for the first eye. You operate, let us say, a topical phacoemulsification. Patient is extremely happy. He's so indebted to you. He comes and gives you sweets. He hugs you. He talks so nice words about it. And he's very, very happy. And you think that you have done your job. And the patient immediately asks for the second eye. I think asking for the second eye is another important parameter, the satisfaction index of the first surgery. When you do the second eye surgery, the hell will break loose. The patient after surgery is not happy. He has a lot of complaints. He says, doctor, you took 5 minutes for the first surgery. The second eye probably took pretty long time. He said the first eye was absolutely painless. The second eye, actually, I had a lot of pain. Then he said the first eye, I could see immediately everything clearly. But now, the second eye, I'm not able to see that well. What has gone wrong? So this is even though the surgery is exactly same, is as per the plan, everything is same, the patient somehow. So this is because of the two evils of life, what we call as the comparing and the expecting. As everybody knows, if you probably forget these two evils, like if you don't compare yourself with anybody else, or if you don't expect anything from anybody, any situation, you'll be always happy. In the second eye, both the evils are working. When the patient comes for the first eye, he's only having fear. He has heard a lot of things about the eye surgery. He's having fear about the surgery. And contrary to his fears, his surgery goes so well, painless, patient gets good vision because he compares it with the other eye which has a cataract. So comparatively, he feels that you have done the great job. When he comes for the second eye, now he is already in the field of expectation. He is expecting the second eye to be painless, very quick, to see very well. He has already set a benchmark. Now, when people come with expectations, you can't make them happy. So he always compares the first eye surgery to the second eye surgery and always gets you into trouble. And especially the vision. The first eye, he compares his vision with the second eye, and that too many a times in the monovision principle, you have focused it for distance. When you do the second eye, he compares the immediate post-op vision of the second eye to the first eye which has been operated some days back. Obviously, the comparison is not fair at all. So he will say the second eye has not gone well. So it is very difficult to make a patient happy for the second eye. Probably the vaccine for this is you need to tell the patient that the second eye is going to take probably more time, is going to be probably a little more painful, and it will take little longer than the first eye to probably get better. or explain the psychology behind this particular, phenomenon. And about the breaking the bad news, I think Dr. Madhav Ambekar will also cover some of it, but this is in relation to cataract surgery. Let us say you have a list, you have got 10 cases lined up. The second case that you are operating, the nucleus drops down. So what will you do? Normally you are in the pressure of operating all the cases. You want to give a detailed explanation and counseling about it. So you will say, let the patient go back to the room or settle down. I will finish my list quickly and go and explain them. I think this should never be done, because the patient relative is most primed to hear the bad news immediately after surgery, preferably in the operation theater premises. Because most of the patient's relative, their idea of an operating room is kind of shaped by the movies that they see. In our typical Indian movies, what's an operating room? There is a light which is blinking, the people who are moving in front of it, then the door opens, the surgeon comes in and delivers a judgment. He says, either you have to take care of the baby or the mother, choose one, or he has lost his memory or whatever. There is some life-shattering judgment that comes out when the door opens. That means they're mentally conditioned to hear the bad news soon after the surgery. So probably you should walk down with your gowns on, maybe they can stand in the semi-sterile area, probably whatever way you want. Let's say we are the back of the cataract is not strong enough. So basically we need to do one more procedure, or we have not put the lens because there is something else wrong at the back. We need to fix that first. Whatever that you want to tell, whichever is the way, the best time is immediate. If you don't do that way, like let the patient go back, you send him 2, 3 hours, 4 hours later you go, the period of susceptibility or the period of vulnerability has passed down. Now they become hostile. And also probably it may be argued in the court of law in future that the doctor did not care to explain such a serious consequence immediately. He just took his great time. He came after 4 hours or maybe half a day, so that can be exaggerated, which can be pitted against you. So better to break the news immediately. I think multifocal is something that has really made life easy for patients and made life difficult for surgeons because of the amount of money that is involved. So patients always expect the moon. So their expectations are so high, and multifocal technology is a evolving technology, has its own share of problems. When the patient gets a multifocal, he forgets the advantages. He only looks at the negatives of multifocal, like glare, halos, and subnormal vision, loss of contrast. So this is very important to guess which patient, because if the patient is a neurotic, patient is a complaining type, patient is an obsessive compulsive disorder patient, he's going to make your life, miserable with the kind of complaints, and multifocal becomes a point of the complete, his center of his whole despair. So best thing is to ask one simple question to the patient. Like, what do you value more? Clarity, that means the crisp vision of a monofocal, or a convenience of a spectacle independence with a multifocal. If you want clarity, you need to forego a bit of convenience. Maybe you have to wear glasses once in a while. If you want convenience of not wearing glasses, probably you have to forego the clarity of around 10% of cases where you may have some subnormal contrast. I think this one question, the patient decides, probably he will be able to make a better choice, and you will be able to explain him or convince him when he comes back with the problems. I think we are always underselling. I said, Dr. Ravindranath said that we are not selling our surgical skills, we are selling the packages. You should always market the surgeon, not the eyeball. And at the end of the day, it is the endophthalmitis. This is where the whole problem starts. This can be completely demoralizing for some surgeons. It can really break their career. So this is something that we need to tackle. But definitely endophthalmitis is not end of the world. And it calls for both art and science. And obviously you need to accept early, fall in line, and be energetic and judicious. That's very, very important. So let us see the patient perspective. Patient thinks that the loss of vision no recovery is a breach of promise. He has pain and discomfort additionally. And obviously he thinks that you're no good. So, but how to handle this? See, very important, you have to take care of them immediately. In the OPD, you get a sense that there's a patient who has been operated 4 days ago. He's coming with some pain or blurring of vision. Don't make him wait at all. Jump the queue, let him take care of him and make it private. Don't in front of other patient, don't handle him. So make it private because you'll never know what he is going to tell. Show concern, show compassion, but you don't have to really bend backward just because you're in a state of panic that you really don't have to really, look agitated. And you ask him, when did the blurring start? If the patient says, if you ask him whether did he cough, sneeze, somebody hit his eye, any subtle things which you could have probably, you can connect that because the patient, once he thinks that something started, normally he connects it to something like sneezing or coughing, which will probably take the shift the guilt to some extent to the patient himself. Very important is don't use the word infection in the beginning. Tell reaction and don't despair. And at the same time, take the hostility head on. This is very important. Show genuine interest. Finally, what happens? Patient becomes hostile, but later accepts it. You have to hold on to your nerves. Very important is avoid medico-legal issues. You can always win the case, but always try to prevent it. You should anticipate, be ready, have a good advocate, everything. So with this, I would like